Centering the needs of survivors is really about kind of acknowledging the harm that was done to them, really believing them, and really giving them the time to explore the impact of the harm, the trauma, the long-lasting changes and effects.
When someone's experienced a trauma or a harm, you kind of go through different stages. Like, it can be heartbreaking, it's grief, it's anger, it's, wanting to hide, it's all of these different things. Meeting a survivor where they're at and not pressuring folks to be somewhere they're not pressuring folks into process or accountability processes if they're not ready. And also just recognizing, right, I think a lot of times people want to fix things. You can't fix a person, right? That's not actually the goal. So supporting a survivor is really allowing a survivor to be as messy and complicated as they need to be in their process, and just holding that with them, right? And doing what they ask you to do within reason. And also being very honest about what your capacity is as someone who's offering support, And I think when we're honest with each other and we collectivize that support, that we can do a lot more for survivors and for ourselves in the process.
So often what gets centered are the people who caused harm. So when I think about like Kevin Spacey or Harvey Weinstein or like these people who are like these public causers of harm, R. Kelly, all these people, it's really like, what do they need to do? How do they need to be punished? Like, how do we do this stuff with them? And everything becomes about them. And to me, at the first level of it is at a narrative level. How do we start to make that shift? So it's like we're focusing on the people who have survived, who are going to survive, hopefully, what has happened to them.
So much of this work about survivorship and accountability, which is about narrative change, it's about creating a culture where we believe people when something's happened, where we understand that if you lost someone to a murder, you're not just going to quote unquote get over it one day. If you've been sexually abused as a child, you're not going to just get over it one day. And that all the ways that PTSD show up are real. That we have to make accommodation for those when they show up, that we don't shame and blame people and make them feel bad when they can't sit in a room or when something's happening and it's triggering. So we make really trauma-informed spaces that make it really safe for people to still be a part of the world, even though they might have survived a severe harm.
As someone who's been a survivor, I found that the pace was often way too fast. And the pace of the person who's caused harm, like where they were like, I know I caused harm, I'm sorry. Like, I just want to very quickly move to saying I'm sorry. And I'm like, well, hold on. I'm not done being mad at you yet. Like, I'm not even done understanding the wound yet. Like I'm still exploring the wound, or it's gotten infected, or I have to figure this out. So to me, the first and biggest piece of it is like we follow the pace of the person who's actually surviving. And then I think the second piece is that we actually structure a society around the idea that we're all survivors.
We came from doing mostly survivor work. And there was this projection into the people who did harm as not being survivors. And now that we work a lot with folks who do harm, I'm just like, well, everyone is like, not everyone is a survivor, but like most people involved in these processes are survivors. I'm a survivor. So like when I'm centering the needs of survivors, I'm like, I too have needs. But I think that in this situation, what centering the needs of survivors means is recognizing the agency of survivors to determine what happens in their lives and to determine what happens on their behalf. Because I think the whole point of what happens when someone experiences violence is that their voice, their agency, their self-determination doesn't matter. And it is recreating that violence for us to not care or to not center their needs in whatever it is that we do, but also being honest about what's realistic, what we have the capacity for, because I think it can also be harmful to promise everything under the rainbow to survivors and then let them down. And so I think it's this tension between you have agency, we're going to follow your lead, and we're going to be honest with you about what's possible and what our needs are too.
Yeah, and you and your process might not be able to, it's important to help a survivor, support a survivor in identifying needs, and I think that's where safety and self-care planning is a really great tool to do at the beginning of a process. And you're not then responsible for meeting those needs.
Right.
You could have a resource list of local organizations that have aligned values that you can refer that person to. A survivor probably is not going to get their healing or their needs met through a process, right? That needs to happen through other things, which is why you need to have like an ecosystem of support, like an ecosystem of intervention.
Really being clear about what's possible and what's not. Even though like I'm a people pleaser and I want to give everybody everything, and I cannot stand the fact that I have to be like, this is where this process can begin and end, and there might be things that can't happen. Like I hate that answer, right? But I think not telling people is disingenuous, it's lying, and it actually sets up false expectation. And so be really creative about what the resources are that like aren't on the books in the community, that aren't on websites. But also I think what is super useful and has helped me as like a people pleaser and a wanting to fix everything in the world is, so I do like some restorative justice stuff. The fundamental principles are like, I'm nobody. I'm no expert. Like I'm going to live your life. And so what we're trying to do is reinforce your natural connections and make you remember that you have these natural connections and also see what needs to happen to strengthen them, right? And so the next time you have something going on, who are your people that you can actually go to, which like Mia will talk about with the transformative justice, like the pods, and so many people will talk about, but like, who are your people and how do we support you in getting reconnected to them so that when something happens, you can call on them, and what are the skills that we can all share together to make this happen, right?
Some of the pieces of centering the needs of survivors, core one is just actually listening, active listening. Like, what is this person really saying, both with their words, but also non-verbally? Like, where is this person at? What am I getting from them about what they need?
Part of being a survivor is that something's been broken. There's a lot of isolation. There's not feeling understood. So there's something about not just expecting survivors to go somewhere, but coming to them, and having some opportunities and mechanisms to like set that up.